today I decided to try a little bit of a podcast setup. So I brought along my friend Thuy, who is a fellow designer. We also recorded an extended cut. If you do like this video and more of the podcast setup, feel free to leave a like and a comment down below. If we can go ahead and get 15 likes on this video and some very positive feedback on the podcast setup, I'll go ahead and release the extended cut. Hey everyone, welcome to the extended cut of the podcast format that I was trying out. If you are watching this, that means that multiple people enjoyed this, so welcome to part 2 of the podcast. Some of these might have a little bit of overlap to what we were talking about before, but there's some new tastes to some different questions. So continuing on with kind of how the fashion industry is represented outside of the industry, what do you think about fashion design competition shows, Thuy? Do you think you would actually be a part of them? Do you think they actually represent any part of the fashion industry?
I definitely think it's very interesting. I don't know if I would say it's accurately reflect the fashion design industry. I do think that many fashion show does open door for a lot of unknown designer, which is a great thing. But in reality is that that's not how the fashion industry works. There is actual steps to everything. It's not just a matter of picking fabric, laying the pattern out and cut one piece of fabric and make it into a garment. Maybe it's more high-end part of the fashion industry that they do things like that, but fashion design as a job, it's require a lot more, tech, a lot. You do have to make the garment, and most of the products are not made here in Americas anymore. So you do have to send information to the factory, get a fit sample, and go through the fit process. And in these shows, you see these model walk down in a garment, but you don't know if that garment is gonna fall apart once the door
that's true,
because they made these garments within 24 hours, and it's unrealistic to make these extravagant garment. A lot of time the hems are not done. Sometimes they just sew it in.
They hand tack it in.
Yes, there's no actual zipper. So once the show ends, they have to somehow get out of the garment, and most of the time they probably cut the seam to let the model out. So yeah, it's very great to see the creative aspect of people, but it's not really realistic, on my personal opinion.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely heads more into the competition aspect rather than the actual fashion design aspect, what we actually do, because a lot of what you see, even on Project Runway, besides the whole hems might not be done or anything, that would be a custom piece, usually luxury custom piece. And when you have more of an industry style piece, it's something that is recreatable. You can make it many, many times, which is why we do a lot of technical design. So that way we can say, no, this was supposed to be this size and this is supposed to be this size. And then the factories can go ahead and just duplicate that all over again so they can sell it throughout the world. Would you actually consider competing on one, though?
I think I would, maybe. I think I would. I think it would be fun.
What kind of show would you go on? Because I was really into Project Runway, but I don't know if I could do that. I was thinking more along the lines of Next in Fashion.
Me too.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that Project Runway, I stopped watching Project Runway within the last couple years.
There's so many seasons of it. I don't blame you.
How many?
I think it was over 20 when it ended.
So many. I'm never gonna catch up. Yeah. But I did watch the beginning of Project Runway, and it was really fun. But I think it would, for me personally, it would be more Next in Fashion type of competition.
Do you ever see yourself making your own label, or just more of sticking with the industry? Because usually those rewards are here's money to start your label. Would you do it though?
I think I would. I would like to, because of everything I've seen now that I work in the fashion industry, I would like to create a more sustainable brand. And I personally want my brand to like represent something more than just fashion, and I want to use the profit to better the world and, I don't know, donate some to help some people's life. So yeah, I would. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it would take me probably like 5 more years to comfortably say I would compete in the show, but I like the idea of competition.
Yes, me too. I agree. And also, I think that one thing I would like to support is domestic production.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that I would like to have my products made in the US and provide jobs for people who actually need it. I understand why the industry move overseas, because ultimately it come down to price, and people want to pay cheap for things, and it's happened and it has always happened within other industry. But it would be nice to have a lot more smaller company to think about, like, let's bring production home.
Definitely. As an industry designer, how do you feel about fashion events that people see, you know, like the runway shows or like presentations? Like, do you feel like they're still a thing, especially after the pandemic? Like, are they, I feel like they're a little bit outdated at this point. They're so exclusive that they don't reach a wide enough market, and that's a lot of money put into just one show.
Well, I think it's half and half. You know, these fashion shows and fashion events are where a lot of people who they come to see and be seen, and a lot of designers get inspiration from these kind of shows. Street fashion, for example, the Met. The Met costs $30,000 for one single seat for one night. That's like the ball of the fashion industry, and you see a lot of designers go there to like show off their creations, and I think that it provides some sort of a fantasy, and I think that people find it inspiring, especially with everything that happened this year. People want to feel that normality. And so I don't think it's ever gonna die. I think it will become very exclusive and very small, just because, you know, fashion houses, they can reach their customer target with just social media. They don't need to have spend $2 million on a 15-minute catwalk anymore.
As we were saying in the previous video, a lot more people are aware of sustainability within the fashion industry, or lack thereof. And to get to these shows, you know, there are models that are flown in, there are directors from magazines flown in, or other fashion houses. And that's why I was saying it's feeling a little bit outdated. But you're right, you know, like they can elevate it and bring it a little bit more into the current times with social media. So they could have their fashion show there, but also film it and then put it on their like YouTube channel and be able to get it to the masses as well.
It's definitely, social media have opened the door for many viewers. Like, you feel more accessible being able to see that exclusive fashion show on your TikTok or your Instagram, you know, and you feel inspired by it, and you're like, wow, that garment looks great. I would like to own something that close to it.
That's true. Yeah, something close. A lot of people could not afford what they see on those catwalks, but something close is definitely what we strive for.
There are a lot of young, inspiring designers that is very crafty and talented, and they made these beautiful clothes that I would say is pretty damn good.
Absolutely. And then continuing on the topic of how the pandemic has affected the industry, how do you think the industry has changed and what it will look like in the next year and next 5 years? Like, do you see us going back to true, like, mass market fashion?
Well, I think one really big effect of COVID is you see many small companies went under, which is kind of sad, because, you know, obviously
And continuing on the thread of how the pandemic has affected the industry, where do you see the industry going, like in the next year, in the next few years? Do you think we will fully return to mass market, making too many things, etc.?
Well, I have seen many small companies that went under because of COVID, unfortunately, and usually it's the bigger companies that can offer free shipping or, a good deal for your price that are still standing. For example, companies like Amazon, Walmart, Costco, they're forever is gonna be the one force driving the mass market. But at the same time, you do see a lot of small business that are thriving due to COVID-19, and the whole world in general, people are just more aware. So smaller businesses are being supported a lot, and that's what I'm hoping, that within the next couple years, these small businesses are gonna be like the driving force of the fashion industry. Also, I think that it is unfortunate, but you do see a lot of these like brick and mortar kind of shops like Macy's, JCPenney, Kmart are going under because they don't have the capital to pretty much compete with these big mass market company, like
that have online business presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially Amazon. They have like the biggest online presence. If you think about 5 years ago, Amazon wasn't really doing fashion. Of course, people were selling clothing in there, but now Amazon have their own design team. They are having Amazon exclusive brands.
They have their own fit teams. They have 3D fit machines to actually fit, or I should say, to measure consumers to make sure that they're still on brand with how their sizing is as well. Like they can afford trust me, that technology is really expensive.
Yeah. And I mean, you see it too, where definitely the fashion industry, there are more companies that doing that kind of 3D. I was speaking to our 3D designer, this amazing, young, talented designer who think that she does a lot of research on her own because that is a big part of her job, and she believed that having 3D fit and 3D presentation is gonna save so much waste, which I didn't think about it, but when she brought it up, it makes sense. Because
it absolutely does make sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm. With just fitting, we waste so much resources. And if you can fit something on 3D and you know that it's right, and you can just fit it on 3D, plug it in the machine, and then it will correct the pattern and everything, and then you can just cut the garment and produce the garment. It would save so much time, so much waste. So I do think that 3D and what Amazon is doing is where the future of the fashion is.
Yeah, and although 3D fitting hasn't quite caught up with knitwear, which is what I'm working with, and I definitely know that it's not quite there yet. It will improve. And trust me when I say a lot of salespeople aren't quite visual people, in the sense that they're not going to be able to really recreate what they want in their heads and know that that's what they're going to get. So they really do enjoy seeing that 3D fit, because a lot of time, energy, samples goes into recreating what the salespeople had in their mind for what they wanted to buy from the customer. So again, reducing waste from the 3D fit is really good, although the technology is still super expensive.
It's very new, but just like everything else, once the next technology is created, it will improve.
Definitely, if you are studying fashion design right now, or still have a year or two left, see if there are 3D fashion classes that you can check into, because that is where you are going to learn it. They already want you to know 3D fashion going into the industry nowadays.
I agree. Good idea. So Hannah, now it's my turn to ask all the questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you want to be a senior designer and stay within the industry, or do you want to open your business?
I do see myself becoming a senior designer, because that is kind of where I want to top off. a director level would be kind of cool. It does come with a pay increase, but it does also come with a lot more responsibility. And that's just not something I would want to deal with because there's a lot of pressure put on that position in terms of the performance of your sales. And, you know, then you start working with the sales team and you kind of go everywhere. And you're still not making the decisions on like how big your team is, and maybe if the company has a little bit more nepotism in it, who is going to be joining your team. You could possibly end up with a team that's not really knowledgeable about what they need to do. I do think I will be leaving the industry eventually. This is probably not going to be my end position. However, I do see kind of more of a pivot coming along. I love teaching, kind of also why I have this YouTube channel, because I love teaching people and I really like fashion design. So I do see myself maybe either doing a fashion professor job as like a backup, but I would love to create a design center so people could study outside of a college setting. They could do more of a casual setting. And then at the same time, I could foster growth like out on Long Island. I'm currently out on Long Island and we don't really have design places out on Long Island. We hardly even have fabric stores. There's Joann's and there's only 2 of them on all of Long Island. And I don't think many more fabric stores. If there are, that's cool because I don't know about them. Someone can totally put that in the comments if they do know. But it'd be great to have not everything be so New York City centric because not everybody can make it into the city.
So Hannah, you've been in the fashion industry for about 3.5, 4 years, and obviously we all started out as an assistant designer, and now you are in associate designer. Do you see a huge difference in pay or seniority or workload? How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I actually do see a pay difference from assistant to associate, so that's nice. But at my current company, associate is kind of the assistant level. So I am still pretty much an assistant, but slight bit more responsibilities just because of how my team is set up. So obviously, you know, it differs from company to company. Associate could be a little bit higher at some companies, and some companies don't even have the associate level. They'd rather just title you assistant, and then you have designer.
Yes. Well, from my personal experience, I do feel that obviously with seniority come with the job title and the pay. However, the job responsibility is not that much different. It depends on what company you are in, but at the same time, you are doing pretty much very similar things as you start out. You're still going to be working on tech pack. You're still going to be responsible with communication to the factory, getting sample here on time, getting the whole presentation ready. So the job is similar, yes, but the pay does increase. So I do think that it is a good thing.
And from the associate to the designer position, you do see quite a pay increase, correct?
Yes, quite.
Mm-hmm. And then the responsibilities change too?
I do have assistant that I delegate works to, but the actual physical part of the job itself pretty much very similar. And I do have to say that if you want pay increase within the industry, the only thing to do is to switch job. And I guess that's like common with any industry, because obviously if you stay at the company and you're making $50,000 a year and they decided to give you 10% increase, that's only $5,000 a year. That's another $20 per paycheck. So say if you are an assistant designer and you're making $30,000 and your company decided to give you even 20% increase, that's another $30 extra per paycheck. But you are now an associate designer, but you're only making 36. But if you were to go to another company as an associate designer, you could potentially get 45 or 50.
Yeah,
so it really depends on how much your company value you. Most of people I know within the industry, they switch job a lot because there is no pay if you stay for a long time. So if you want the pay, unfortunately, you gotta move.
Yeah, as you were saying in the last video, it is a pretty revolving door in this industry. I mean, if you have an assistant or associate who stays longer than 2 years, like that's kind of abnormal. And sometimes the companies will notice that and appreciate you and maybe give you a little bit more of a raise. Others might just see it as just like, oh, you're just here longer, whatever.
It's true. I do see that a lot within the industry. And yeah, you're right. Most assistant and associate designer don't stay within the company for more than 2 years.
Yeah, you typically see like the director staying the longest. It's usually like they worked so hard to get to that level, then they're like, well, I made it, so let me stay here.
Yes. I do have faith that you will make it into that level a lot shorter than 5 years. I know you're talented and you're very hardworking, so you don't have to worry about making senior designer in 5 years. I'm sure it's gonna be probably 3 to 4 years.
Well, thank you so much for that compliment and confidence in me. And thank you so much for sitting with us once again for the extended cut of the podcast. Let us know if you did enjoy the podcast format in the comments down below, and I'll see if we can continue it in the future. Maybe have some other people as well. And as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Pitch it to our CEO about having okay.